Hello everybody. As you all know, the flight path for getting air transport back in business in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic is still far from clear. And one question that the current situation begs is whether consumers might take a fresh look at what private aviation has to offer. Another is whether there might in future be a new relationship between private aviation and the airline sector. Well, joining us today is Thomas Flohr, who founded the private flight provider VistaJet back in 2004. And then in 2018, VistaJet acquired US charter company ExoJet and private aviation technology company JetSmarter. With the subsequent launch of aviation marketplace XO, the company's Vista Global Group now owns 115 aircraft worldwide. Thomas, thank you for joining us. Now, I believe you see the possibility for some sort of new alignment between private aviation and commercial airline air transport. What do you see developing and how might that benefit travelers?
Sure. Good afternoon. How are you? Well, the concern I have is on the commercial aviation side, is that it's been dramatically hit over the last couple of months. And if we just for a moment not think and not focus on the main hub-to-hub business, which is probably a little easier to reestablish. And it's a question of frequency per day rather than do we fly destination to destination. I'm extremely concerned about the point-to-point traffic, which the airlines really have spent tens of billions of dollars over the last 10 to 15 years, primarily post-September 11. And this is, I mean, take a Warsaw to Atlanta, or, it's just a secondary city to secondary city with all, sorry if I call Atlanta a secondary city, but I'm not talking about here in Dubai, London, and New York, and Los Angeles. I'm talking about the slightly less frequency route, and that's where especially Boeing has put so much emphasis on the Dreamliner and said, well, people will not fly with 500 people on the A380. They prefer going direct, nonstop. Mm-hmm. And to reestablish those routes, I believe, will be of utmost difficulty, because you initially will deal with very low load factors, maybe 10%, 20%, 30%. Mm-hmm. And isn't it then when the airlines have spent a couple of $100 million on a 777 or a maybe a 787 Dreamliner, and for them it would probably be less expensive leaving the plane on the ground, because they still incur the same direct operating costs. And it's this thought in mind where I'm saying, hey, if there is 10, 15 passengers going from secondary to secondary city, mm-hmm. isn't that where the business aviation world should collaborate with the commercial aviation world, and initially, just to get them going, mm-hmm. Offer some of those routes with an airplane with maybe 10 or 15 passengers on it, then get a sense of the traffic and the demand. We could even do this twice a day, mm-hmm. so to say, mm-hmm. but at least the airplanes are full. Then, we haven't thought this through in terms of revenue sharing and so on and so forth. But I find this economic aspect secondary to the extent that once airlines have assurance that there is enough traffic to at least cover the direct operating costs, it will make it easier for them to then relaunch those routes on a break-even or profitable route. And it's these kind of flexibilities which I think need to happen over the months and next quarters to come. Remember, it took the commercial airline industry some 3.5 years post-September 11 to come to the same kind of density and infrastructure. And this is what we have here with COVID-19 and a multiple of the September 11 effect. And it's these kind of models which we are exploring. For us, to fly those routes is relatively easy as long as governments allow, the traffic mm-hmm. between those two countries. We're the only company with Vista Global with a truly global infrastructure in place. And you saw the recent retreat and announcement by NetJets to reduce their international presence significantly. We are absolutely committed to this worldwide infrastructure. We're not retiring any airplanes. We're actually looking at further expanding with the Global 7500. So those are the thoughts we have in mind. These are the things we're studying. And I believe it's a good contribution to get this global network going again, which travelers are so depending on.
Yeah, good point. And of course, with your large fleet and your easily diversified fleet, I guess in theory you could get something like that started fairly quickly, and it would almost be like a sort of temporary code share arrangement in some ways.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Okay. We're here. We're ready. We're just literally waiting. We're seeing some of the routes already reopening. We have a fair amount of flights to China. We have a fair amount of flights to, obviously, America is still open. It just depends on the passenger, which passenger is allowed to do what. And that's what we already offer today. And it's that global, unique infrastructure we built over those now close to 17 years, which came in so importantly significant in March and in April, whilst we're seeing the peak of the COVID-19 effects for the aviation industry.
Yes, certainly. Now, you mentioned the extreme pressure that these airlines are under. One of the challenges they're facing is that there's talk about them having to not fill the middle row of 3 seats, or to do what they have to do to reduce the number of people they have in their aircraft. And of course, that's going to hit their revenues and their yield. If that happens, well, first of all, do you see that happening? And if it does, will that so close the affordability gap between private aviation and airline service that, again, it could be some sort of market disruptor?
Yeah, I mean, we currently do not see it in the United States. It has not been implemented. Mm-hmm. The planes which are flying within the U.S., we see it with our pilots, which need to be deployed to the private jet positioning airport. There is some significant conversations to initially lead the middle seat empty, which will certainly push the price point. And I would want to say price point for consumer, as well as the break-even point for the direct operating cost to higher, because you need either more passengers, but it's not possible because you take a third of the capacity out. So you need to raise the price. And the last thing the consumer wants today is a price rise. Consumers are very price sensitive right now. Yeah. To that extent, I see this as a true possibility, but again, it depends on the exact regulation country by country. In terms of our model helping the airlines, this price point will always be higher, than for an airline, because you maximum 10 to 15 passengers on one airplane. Mm-hmm. So it's really an alternative to maybe first class or full fare business class of what we would be offering. Certainly not at the economy price point. But we think that technology will play a very, very significant role in this restart. And knock on wood, I mean, we did the JetSmarter acquisition last year. And because we always believe that technology will play a very significant role. And I remember people kind of like looking at us a little bit and saying, well, why is Thomas now in the seat sharing business? It was the long-term aspect being in the seat sharing business, because other than utilization, we always said aircraft ownership makes no sense. Utilize the asset more, bring the price point down. But what is the second most undervalued asset in the business aviation, in the private jet marketplace? It is the cabin itself. It is the average utilization of 2 or 3 passengers, whereas you can easily fill it up to 8 or 10 or 12, still be comfortable and have this point-to-point connection. And it's for that reason that we acquired JetSmarter with this. One of the reasons we acquired JetSmarter with this technology, because it allows us to easily, on the app, on the XO marketplace, crowdsource a flight. Anybody who wants a seat, just go online, book your seat as a member of XO, and it's that easy, just like easier or even easier as an airline ticket. Yeah. And with that in mind, I believe, especially as we're looking at the world post-COVID-19, that this will be a very important feature of the Vista Global Group, to allow on the XO fleet a seat sharing possibility, where consumers can deal with each other electronically on a technology base and actually restart this world in a very, very simple way.
Yeah, good point. So it's that combination of fleet and technology, and the fact that you've already done this in one form or another that gives you the confidence to now be floating this idea. Very exciting, very interesting lateral thinking, if I may say. Now, Thomas, another thing that VistaJet has been doing during this crisis is offering empty leg seats to government officials, emergency personnel. Can you tell us what's been happening with that and describe how it's been helping?
Sure. This was initially born in the second half of March because we had a tremendous amount of flights to remote locations, and at the same time we saw the commercial airline network collapsing, and hence the possibility for hand carrying important medical cargo or for government employees to be returning to whatever their end position or important location was, made it practically impossible. If you take a London to Malta today, the only way to do this commercially is via Doha. And that's a 17-hour flight. So it is for those instances where we made our empty leg infrastructure available. A few days into this, we had significant positive response, and then we expanded this offering also to our EXO fleet in the United States, and therefore the entire 115 airplanes today are available for this hub.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Well done doing that. And then to close, the impossible question everybody would love to answer: when do you think the industry will be able to return to normal? And will normal look like what we have before? Will there just be some temporary interruption, or some sort of permanent, lasting change to air transport?
Well, I think, again, you would need to differentiate here between business jet and commercial. You have, obviously, where the world seems to go is that social distancing, and in some countries, wearing masks, etc., is for quite a significant period of time is part of our normal future. Now, is that normal as it used to be? Of course not. And hence, the utilization of FBOs and not big airports, in the less people density you have, is what the governments are prescribing us in general, as a general rule. And it happens so to be that business aviation is using much smaller terminals, private jet terminals, FBO infrastructure. In some instances, drive with your car straight to the airplane. The less interference with other people is really what the governments are telling us to do, and hence ideally get directly with the respective documents, of course, documents not meaning passports, but health certificates and so on and so forth, which we are doing, which we introduced very early on in January, that we had our passengers sign their medical track record. And so with such information, which obviously can be electronically technology interchange, ideally drive straight to the airport, pilots not handshaking, staying in the cockpit, maybe only minimum service on board for a while, which is okay as long as we get from A to B. Don't get me wrong, we're happy to give the full service, but if so not desired because of the human contact with the flight attendant, we're happy to downsize that, still offer buffet type service. But then focusing on how this, in our opinion, is going to pan out, is that the global infrastructure which Vista has built will really be used kind of like, just like we saw this huge demand just before the doors were shut, so to say. We see that same phenomena happening as the doors will open. So is this a world anywhere near of what it used to look like as late as December, January? I remember I flew down to Mozambique for New Year's, and the world still looked all okay. Not for a long while, I think. But is transportation from A to B in a most effective way happening? The answer is yes, it will be. And it's we have a pent up. We have people literally waiting in the starting boxes, so to say, to go and conduct a business, visit their families. Remember, it's business aviation flies the decision makers from A to B, and they need to go.
Yeah.
From a commercial point of view, and it's really reflected in those billions of dollars of bailouts. It's not for a long time. And I repeat what I said in the beginning. It's that fact that stay on the ground than having 20 or 30 passengers on board. Mm-hmm. That will be the problem. And so I think that business aviation will contribute a significant a contribution to the restart of the world economy. Mm-hmm. We're going to do the best what we can. We're prepared. We have the people. We have the know-how. And we have the technology to make this happen seamlessly. And for the rest, I think we, until a couple of quarters from now, I think the politicians have to be very careful to, on one hand, not to open too fast, but at the same time get the economy going again. And they will do it in careful, measured steps, and we are supporting that. But with each little step of more opening, the travel will more likely happen, mm-hmm. and we will be supporting over the quarters and years to come.
Perfect. Well, it's good to hear that you seem to believe the human desire and the human need to travel won't go away. It's simply a question of how people like you can respond to those impulses. Thomas, it's great to get your perspective again. Always good to chat with you. Thank you for your time, and stay safe, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this AIN video. Please like, subscribe, and share it if you've enjoyed it. Also, visit AINonline.com for all the latest on the aviation industry.